It's new game time. It's been a while. It's time to get back into things. So we played a lot of Ironsworn, and with the new Starforged system by Sean Tompkin that's coming out pretty soon here, it's actually just finishing up with the Kickstarter, and we have access to the PDFs. I decided that it's time to do another one. So I'm gonna, and this is the new one. The general kind of theme of this one, it's going to be primarily solo, but there's going to be some possible co-op cameos. I have some folks that might be doing it alongside me with me in the same shared world. And if that does happen, then I'll make sure I post them here too. A couple things to cover. Tools. There's kind of two things that we're going to be using for this series. Number one, and let me flip actually we already have it up. What you're seeing here is a new tool that's being developed by Nick Boughton, and I think it's called Iron Journal, or it's tagged as Stargazer. And this is going to be a really cool alternative to the old, Roll20 system where we can capture all of our truths. Let's see if I can scroll around on this one too. Okay, here we go. So you can see all our truths here. We're going to be covering in this session. This is a general introductory session. So if this is something that you don't really care about and you just want to jump into the gameplay, skip this video and then go right into the next one. But this is a really handy way to be able to track things. I like this as an alternative to Roll20. I like Roll20, but I wanted something that felt a little more streamlined, and Nick's been doing a really good job with this. So that's number one. Number two is I'm going to be using, while this tool has moves in it, I'm going to be using this really cool tool that was designed by Colin Kluker. It's called Traveler Ironsworn, and now it's going to be Traveler Starforged. It's a really handy way, and it's going to be tough to see it on here, to be able to review and reference all of the moves in the game in like a really handy... It's a printout thing, and I went to Office Depot and just got it laminated and then bound, but you don't have to. But I find that this is a really handy way to reference all of the moves without having to go to the PDF or flip through the book. I even have the reference guide for Ironsworn that Sean did, and it's great, but sometimes I just want to be able to flip to things really easily and not have to flip through a lot of different pages. And I find that now that I've used this for a while, it's very difficult to play without this. It feels less streamlined playing without this. So we're going to be using the new version that Colin's put together for Starforged, so pretty handy. As a side note, all of the links to the tools, both the Traveler Starforged and the Stargazer on the Iron Journal, is going to be linked in the description. So if you are curious to use these yourselves, just go check them out. I strongly recommend both of them. As far as the tone of the game is concerned, I want this to be more like Hope Punk rather than Grimdark. So there's going to be a more kind of positive focus. The world is still grim and gruesome and hard and tough and rumble, but I want this to be one of like connecting with people. Try to have it be more of a positive tone. I know it can be really difficult. Most of the Ironsworn games that I've played have gone real down into the dark just because of the nature of the theme and setting. But we're going to be trying to lift it up a little bit more, and our character is focused on that too. And also, because I'm inspired by Ryutama, I want to be able to do some vignettes during travel. So as we're traveling from place to place, I'll be trying to insert more of those things in there, just because I found it fun. That was like my coolest thing that I loved about Ryutama, is these little vignette, mini scenes of somebody just eating a meal and hanging out and talking to the people. It was a nice kind of chill downtime, but it let us see some of kind of what goes on behind the scenes outside of the action, kind of off things that would happen, like in your montage. If you're watching a TV show, I tend to think about games in terms of like scenes in TV shows. So yeah, something like that. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the actual tool itself, and let's start going through what I came up with on the world, character, people, places, Iron Vows, stuff like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and pop in here and start going through. So we're going to start off with our truths. I'm going to have these tagged in the description, so there should be like a table of contents effectively. So if you're only curious about certain things, if you want to hear about the world, stick around. If you are curious just about the character, feel free to bounce forward. And if you don't care about any of this crap, like I mentioned before, just jump to the next episode, and then we're going to be starting off with the actual gameplay itself. Okay, so I'll read through these, maybe not all of them, but just to give us a little bit of a recap. So on the Cataclysm, I have chosen that we're actually still in our solar system. So we're still in, the Earth, Sun, our own solar system. But something has gone sideways on us. So we escaped the ravages of a catastrophic war. And we'll do this movie style. Over centuries, the factions of Earth and Mars consumed resources and shattered lives as we fueled the engines of industry, expansion, and war. And in the end, both worlds were ruined, unable to support human life any longer. Fleeing the devastation, we assembled our fleets and traveled to the Forge, Jovian orbital station originally designed as a fleet base for interstellar expeditions. A new home, a fresh start. So I want this to be in our solar system. Because it's familiar, and we can make the adventure be a little bit smaller in scale, but there's still tons of places to explore. So the overarching theme of this is our character is going to be a Salvager, and the name of the series is called The Salvager, and that's what it's going to be focusing on. And so we can make it about small stories that are going around like the Jovian moons, but there's still tons of space to explore, and there's no reason that we can't go beyond that further if we want to. Next up on the Exodus, there's also some smaller pieces in here. Feel free to read around as we're going through this if you're curious. Like, there were some questions in the books around if you possess a keepsake or an artifact from the pre-Cataclysm times. So I've entered some of that stuff in here. This is more, character-based in nature. So feel free to read this as we're going along. Next up is the Exodus. So mysterious alien gates provided instantaneous one-way passage to the Forge. In the midst of the Cataclysm, our ancestors found a strange metal pillar on old Earth's moon. A map of the surface of this alien relic detailed the deep space locations of the Iron Gates, massive devices which powered artificial wormholes. The Exodus ships fled through the gates and emerged here at the Forge. So think like big space travel gains, instantaneous travel that just took us out to the Forge around the Jovian space, around Jupiter. These are now kind of largely offline, so it worked for kind of one period of time, and then it stopped working. We don't know why. We'll find out and play. Next up, communities. Few survive the journey to the Forged, and we are scattered to the winds in this perilous place. The factional hostilities followed us here and quickly broke any sense of central governance or cooperation. Our settlements are often small, starved for resources, and on the brink of ruin. Hundreds of far-flung settlements are lost and isolated within the untamed chaos of our outer solar system, and we do not know their fate. I plan on running into a lot of communities as we play this game, and making lots of contacts, meeting lots of people. That's the hope for the series. We'll see how it actually plays out as we start doing it. Next up is Iron. Iron vows are sworn upon totems crafted from the enigmatic metal we call black iron. Black iron was first forged by a long-dead civilization. Some say it is a living metal, attuned to the hidden depths of the universe. Remnants of this prized resource are found within ancient sites throughout the solar system. It is resistant to damage and corrosion, but can be molded using superheated plasma at specialized facilities. The Ironsworn, which we are one of, carry necklaces laden with pieces of black iron received as tokens of sworn vows being completed for others in need. So our character and other Ironsworn will have these necklaces that have these pieces of black iron on it, and that's going to be like if you see somebody that had a bunch of these pieces of black iron around it, that would mean, wow, this person has completed a lot of these vows, these tasks for other people. They definitely help folks. It's kind of a sense of your prestige and place and competence, so to say. And our character has one to start with. We'll get into that in a little bit. Next up, laws. Laws and governance vary across settled domains, but bounty hunters are given wide latitude to pursue the contracts. Their authority is almost universally recognized and supersedes local laws. Through tradition and influence, the powerful Hunters Guild is given free rein to track and capture fugitives in most settled places. Only the foolish stand between a determined bounty hunter and their target. Some of these things are not going to be as focused on, so I'll just kind of skip to the next piece and not talk about it too much. Laws is one of them, but it's kind of scattered as we go through. We'll find that as we play. Religion, our gods failed us. We left them behind. The Exodus was a tipping point. We don't really care too much about religion in this particular game. It's going to be a small piece, if at all. If it comes up for whatever reason, then we can dig into it. But at start, not a big deal. Magic does not exist. Some look to superstition and old age traditions for comfort in this unforgiving galaxy. But that is foolishness. What some call magic is simply a product of technologies or natural focus we aren't yet equipped to understand. It's more the technology is magic kind of thing, stuff that we don't understand. It's possible we may come across some stuff that's very strange as we play the game, and so this may be revised as we play. We'll see. Communication and data. Much was lost when we came to the Forge. It is a dark age. The knowledge that remains is a commodity as valuable as the rarest resource. Information is collected, hoarded, and jealously guarded. Ships and outposts endure prolonged periods of isolation, and rumors or disinformation are used to gain advantage or undermine foes. There's no quick, easy Wi-Fi communication. It's probably all short-range radio-based. It fits with our isolated communities model. When we want to talk to people and find people, we got to go there. We got to actually get nearby to talk to folks. So that might be part of the whole thing, too, of just sending a ship just to be able to communicate. Sending the mail. It's like literally the mail in this kind of a setup. Next up, medicine. We chose the Menders option, order of sworn healers who preserve our medical knowledge and train new generations of caregivers. Nothing too fancy there. Artificial intelligence. The vestiges of advanced machine intelligence are coveted and wielded by those in power. Much of our AI technology was lost in the Exodus. What remains is under the control of powerful organizations and people, and is often wielded as a weapon or deterrent. The rest of us make do with primitive systems. So, think, what was that one? Battlestar Galactica, with their crappy old systems, Firefly, that kind of stuff. Are there AI out there? Absolutely. Do we have one? No. Do most people have one? No. Most communities wouldn't even have them. Most settlements or stations or things like that probably wouldn't have them either. They're very closely guarded. It doesn't mean we couldn't run across one or potentially even acquire one in the future, but we'll discover it in play. War never ends. Talented weaponsmiths and shipwrights craft deadly, high-tech tools of destruction. Dominant factions wield mighty fleets and battle-hardened troops. Those in power have access to weapons of horrific, destructive potential. Skirmishes and war flare across the settled domains, and most are pawns or casualties in these destructive campaigns. I will read this next section too, because it's going to be important to the setting of our game. One of the questions was, have you fought in any wars? Are there any experiences which haunt you now? And my answer was, my character has actively avoided the endless war, as it is known. As old factions are shattered and new ones rise to take their place in a pointless attempt to control the system. While I bear no physical wounds from these conflicts, I've seen too many friends and communities be caught up in these wars and die senselessly. So there's the forever war. It's the war that's always going on. It followed us here from old Earth and old Mars, even though they're long since shattered. And it's constantly happening in the background. That's going to be part of the setting for our Salvager feel to it. And we're trying to avoid that as much as possible. Life forms. This is a perilous and often inhospitable galaxy, but life finds a way. Life finds a way. After the initial activation of the Iron Gates centuries ago, new and strange life began appearing around the system, primarily around ruins and sites containing technology from the old ones, the long-dead civilization. That's what we're referring to them as. While not a common sight, nearly everyone has at least one story of some strange creature being encountered. So this should be a very rare, uncommon occurrence, but it's out there. So we may run across some strange places, and we're going to be stating ahead of time that the two things are linked. The life forms and the old ones, that long-dead civilization. If we find one, the other one is nearby, or there's some influence of the others that are nearby, most likely. So if you find an alien, there's probably, or some kind of strange life, there's probably some kind of vestige of the old ones that are nearby. And if the old ones are here, then the possibility of running into one of these strange life forms, these alien life forms, is probably higher. Precursors. The old ones, an advanced spacefaring empire, once ruled the entirety of our solar system and beyond. Vaults of inscrutable purpose, along with the now dormant iron gates, are all that remain to mark the old one's legacy. But those places are untethered from our reality. These vaults can appear spontaneously, washed up like flotsam in the tides of time. Their gravity and atmospheres pay no heed to natural laws. Some are corrupted and ruined. Others are unmarred and intact. Some are both at once. They are chaos. And I will read this part too, because this is something we may run across in our salvaging career as we play. Have you ever had any notable encounters with precursor vaults, relics, or tech? I once watched a capital ship and its picket take up position around a vault that had quietly appeared outside the settlement I grew up in when I was around 7 years old. There was an odd shimmering around the black iron structure, and then it vanished, along with all the ships stationed nearby. Over 5,000 people gone in the blink of an eye. Some salvagers say wondrous technology can be found inside, but you won't catch me getting anywhere near one. Just like the Forever War, the Endless War, we're going to be avoiding any of these things, especially early on in our career. That doesn't mean we won't go there. If we're pressed to, for whatever reason, that may change. But man, oh man, are we going to be trying to avoid that, if at all possible. Finally, horrors. This is the last one? Yeah. Put enough alcohol on a spacer and they'll tell you stories of ghost ships crewed by vengeful undead. It's nonsense. Within our system, space and time are as mutable and unstable as a flooding river. When reality can't be trusted, we are bound to encounter unsettling phenomena. So this is probably related to some of the weird stuff that we find from the old ones. This may come through, especially when we start getting into the vaults. That doesn't mean there won't be any horrors, but usually it's these odd stories that then get kind of pumped up over time. We say at the beginning, and then things could rapidly change. Okay. So those are our truths about the world. And now let's go ahead and jump into our character, one Mr. Roland Bishop. Roland Bishop is, and that's what I'll do. I'll just pop open the character backstory. I'm not going to read this, but I'll recap it here. Really handy. You can pop open these journal notes in the Iron Journal tool system that we're talking about here. And we're going to be adding things. We'll track stuff in this tool as we go. So my character was married, 2 daughters, a wife for all of 22 years, and the character is now at a turning point in his life. Roland, his daughters they're done with school, they're out of the home, they're living their own lives as adults, and my wife has grown bored or tired or some combination and has left me. She's going through her own thing in life, and she decided to leave and live on her own, which is fine. And my character would hold no ill will. But now my character finds themselves alone, bored, going through an early midlife crisis, and Roland has decided that it's time to start a new life. And so takes his life savings, everything that he has, by and large, and has decided to purchase an old workhorse ship off of an Ironsworn Salvager that I convinced through probably a lot of begging and pleading and convincing that, give me a shot, I can do this thing, I can do it. The character used to be like a station mechanic, like a station maintenance mechanic on an old, probably like a mining colony or some kind of station orbital or something. We don't really care. It doesn't really matter too much. But now this is the new part of their life. They're going to be taking on this new role as a salvager in deep space, because it's exciting and it's different. And we'll see how it goes. I also called out here, probably going to get myself killed in the first job, but it sure beats wasting away. Okay, cool. So we can talk about the character's general stats and stuff. You can see here, I've chosen for my stats, my high, the 3 is in heart. The 2s are in iron and wits, and the 1s are in edge and shadow. So this is a person that's very connected to people, and enjoys having those connections, trying to make those connections, trying to reach out to folks in the solar system that's very broken and apart, and trying to build their own community. I have this vision in my mind. I have no idea if it'll take us there, because I don't like to set these things in advance. But I have this vision in my mind of, we start the game alone, all by ourselves on this ship that's cold and impersonal. And as we play the game, I can envision, in the movie in my mind of our series, The Salvager, that space growing into one of its own personal community, and not just connecting with outside communities, but having our own internal community for the ship itself. So, and that sounds very cool. I like that concept, that idea. We'll see how it progresses. Because again, I don't like to set these things in advance. And then, of course, he's a pretty hard guy. Not uncaring, but just, pretty hard. He's lived a rough life. And he's got his wits about him. That's what we kept his wits into. And then Shadow and Edge, he's not super fast and nimble. He also doesn't really try to deceive people or care to or be sneaky about things. He wants to be very upfront. That's why we see the stats of 1 in Shadow and Edge. The assets that we've chosen, he's a diplomat. We're not going to look through these. Feel free to read through them. He's a diplomat, likes connecting with people and enjoys making those connections. He's also a scavenger, or trying to become one at least. And a lot of these things he's learned from his background as a station mechanic and engineer. And then for the starship, because everybody gets a starship to start with in this game, and we've named ours, you can lead a horse to water. I love the naming convention, by the way. There's a book series that's called, and I tagged it over here. It's called The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. Phenomenal book series. And all of the ships have this cool like idiom or saying naming convention. You can so ours is you can lead a horse to water. And our ship also has an expanded hold, which lets us collect more cargo and then use that as supply, which sounded really handy and thematic with our scavenger approach. So that's pretty cool. We have our ship, the ship itself, and we can talk about, I'll jump over to some of these things just because it makes sense as we were talking through them. Our ship, we taking the inspiration and touchstones from, there's a sci-fi movie with Pedro Pascal called Prospect. And there's the drop ship that the father and daughter team use. That's kind of my general feel for the starting place. It's very cold. It's very impersonal, very beige. It's like the personification of beige in a starship. And we're hoping to make that a little more homey as we play the game, but we'll see. And it's also the ship itself is very modular. So that's one of the reasons that Roland would have picked up this ship and our contact probably offered this ship, was because it's very modular in nature. It's a workhorse. It's meant to be rough and tumble, which fits the salvager's life, the rough life of a salvager. Well, so that's our ship. Let's see here. Close that up. That's the recap. The gears and notes, just a general feel and look for our character. We have the silver chain with a black iron ringlet, a single black, ring, loop around it. And this is from our father. We don't know anything about this. We know our father gave it to us. We didn't understand at the time the purpose of it, the backstory, the context of it. And we still don't know about it. We'll probably talk to people, and other people may know our father, but we don't know if he was Ironsworn, how we got this, etc. Find out and play. We also always carry our worn tool belt that we have from years and years past working as a station engineer, and also our black hoodie, our old black hoodie that has the Jovian Technical College lettering right on the front, because that's where we went to school and we're a proud alma mater. We don't give any money to them because we're broke as hell, but that's not the point. Okay. I can pop over to the sector, which will give us an idea of our space. We start in the hegemony area. Hegemony is a moon, a very tiny little insignificant moon in Jovian space. It's one of Jupiter's moons. And there's going to be a couple places that we know nearby. So we know that there's this place called the Spire on Hegemony. We know very little about it other than it's just used for like a layover spot, place for people to meet, to relax, socialize. And then we're going to be starting at a station called Reprise. And if I pop open our settlements, Reprise is the home base of our first contact. And if I come down to people, our first contact is May Farron. She is Ironsworn Salvager, who was our first contact for giving us our first job and also getting us our first ship. Not going to get into details of it. We'll talk about it in our first actual play session, which will be coming right after this. Let's see here. Those are the only people that we know at the start. The game system really makes it so that you start off even far less than you did with Ironsworn. Ironsworn, you had 2 or 3 contacts. You kind of flesh some things out. You flesh some things out. This one gives it a little more bare, and I actually like that for our setup, because our whole point, one of the themes that we want to explore in this game is one of making connections, reaching out and connecting to people. I also like that the game has a separate system for, in this one versus Ironsworn, for being able to track the connection progress with your contacts. So you can have people and those are just all your random NPCs, but then you can also have more closer connections, and they have a separate system that's built for the game too. Really neat. And then as you do things or as you share experiences, then that connection will grow stronger, and then you can form bonds over time. Really, really cool. I'm looking forward to exploring this. Okay. Anything else that we want to cover? Yeah, the last 2 parts are our starting vows. So we have our big vow. This is our epic level vow of something that's going to shape, or that we want to shape our game as a whole, kind of the big goal that the character has long term. And ours is, I swear on iron, and all the characters' vows will be led with that. I swear on iron to make a name for myself as the greatest salvager the system has ever seen. That is most certainly epic, and we have a long way to go before we could ever approach that, because right now we're a nobody. We're not even a salvager. We want to call ourselves a salvager. And our first job is going to be to go and just find out some stuff and see if we can discover some things. Speaking of which, our first vow, and this is the first job that we have, and we'll talk about the context of what this is around, because we rolled it up on our settlements. You can see it here in one of our rolled troubled sections on the right-hand side for the Rapai settlement, is that I swear on iron to discover the fate of the missing cargo ship, a penny for your thoughts. And this is a job that we're being given by our contact, Mayfarin. So they're putting us out there. They probably feel like it's an easy first job to go on, but also enough pressure and enough push to really test us a bit without potentially getting us killed. Okay. So I think that's a good start for this game. The only other part that I'll mention is that in the sector section, this will be filled out as we continue to play. Anything that you see with these kind of highlighted purple areas, these are known paths that we know. And then as we explore, we'll create our own paths, which is nifty too. And then this one that goes down from Hegemony, this leads out to another area. So all the sectors that we're going to be using are probably like a planet and then a moon. At the beginning, we're going to be staying very heavily around, we think, the Jovian sector. So we'll probably be going from moon to moon, going in different places. But we may expand out from there, depending on how things go. So thank you for joining us on this first kickoff session. The next session is going to be jumping directly in. We're going to be starting off and going on our first job to be able to find a penny for your thoughts. And then we're going to be seeing how the story of Roland Bishop and his desire to become the greatest salvager that anyone has ever known. So stay tuned for session 1. Thanks, everybody.